Hi AP, welcome back. We are going to start using classes with methods on the canvas because I know that so many of you just want to make things that are visual and fun and exciting, and I am right there with you. You guys have been doing an amazing job getting down like the syntax and the concepts that go with object-oriented programming. So I feel like now we can shift our focus to making things that are pretty and that are visual and interactive. So today we're going to make a random walker. I am modifying this idea off of a coding train lesson, so that is like where the name and things are coming from. And we're going to be building our own class instead of using the built-in vector that they use in the coding train. So here's my dream for this. I would like to have a point somewhere on the canvas. It's going to be a pretty fat point, like we're going to up the stroke weight so that it's big. And we're going to use a point because it just has two values. It just has an X and a Y. And we are going to make it move kind of randomly all around the screen. And then we might even like take the background away or move the background to setup so that we can see what type of designs our thing makes. So in order to do this, there's no starter code. Just open up a blank editor and make sure that you give it a good name. Mine right now is called Good Stranger. You might want to call this like 2.3.0 Random Walker or something so that you know what you were learning about and you can use it as your notes. Make sure that your video and your code, are side by side so you can see what's happening. And just remember that you can rewind, pause, rewatch, slow down, speed up, whatever you need to do to make sure you have your information. So we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to leave my setup in my draw right there because, again, we're working on the canvas. We need to make sure that a canvas is made, and we're going to need the draw function to make things happen. So I'm going to start coding beneath the draw, beneath this curly brace where the draw function ends. And I'm just going to make a note that my classes go below this line. And I like to just note that to keep things separate for myself, and so that when I go back to edit my classes later, I can go look at them. We'll talk about this a little bit more in class, but similarly to how we ended up putting functions in a different file so that our code looked cleaner, we can also put classes in a separate file to keep our code looking clean, and we'll go over that together. But for today, I'm just putting it all in one place. Sorry guys, my hair is all wrapped up and drying today, and it's being really annoying. I'm going to drop down and I'm going to start my new class. So I'm going to call this class Walker because it's going to be a little shape that walks all over. And then I'm going to have a curly brace that begins and ends my class. Now, just the same as what you guys were seeing with classes and objects off the canvas, this is still going to have a constructor function. Oops, whoa, I messed that up. It's still going to have a constructor function, so constructor, parentheses, and then those curly braces for where it begins and ends. And all of the things about this point are going to sit right in there. So I want this point, because I am drawing a point, and points have an X and a Y value. I want it to have an X value that I will just make 200 to start. And I want it to have a Y value that I will also make 200. I'm going to make this little thing start in the center of my screen. And I'm also going to give it a size because that's going to be my stroke weight that I need to use. And I'm going to call the size, let's do 30. I'm going to make it like pretty big. Actually, 15. 15 is pretty big. So I have three properties right now, and it's going to draw a point, and the point is going to show up on the screen, and it's going to move around. But you'll notice that if I hit play, nothing happens. And some of you might be saying, well, that's because you never made your little mover guy. So let's go try and make an instance of this class, and let's see an object instance of this class, and let's see what happens. So up the top of my page, I'm going to make a variable called walker1. And inside setup, I'm going to set it equal to a new walker. So walker1 equals new walker. I don't need to feed it anything because I didn't tell the constructor to expect anything. But now if I hit play, I still don't get a point showing up on my canvas, and I definitely do not get a moving point showing up on my canvas. So in order to make this happen, right now we have all this data about the thing we want to make. We have to program a method that is going to tell the computer what this should show up looking like. It's kind of like when you have an idea for a drawing in your head, but you haven't actually drawn it yet. I need to like do that drawing. So I'm going to define a new method, and we know that we define methods inside our class but below the constructor. So staying inside the curly braces for my class walker, I'm going to make a method called display. It is also not going to take anything in, but it's a function, so it'll still have these parentheses, and it'll still have these curly braces. And the whole purpose of my display function is just going to be to show what this thing looks like on the screen. Now, one thing I want to note, constructor is a word that we always have to use. It is part of this class that we are making. It's what decides that we're making all these things. Display is somewhat arbitrary. So I am calling it display. I could just as easily have called it like draw walker. I could have called it make walker. I could have called it show walker. You can call it like any name you want. I just happen to think that display is nice and easy, which is why we are using it. So I just want to make sure we're clear, like constructor needs to happen. The rest of these, we're kind of naming them just as to what makes sense to us. And I'll make a note in here that this could have different names, but the purpose of the method is to display our point for each object. That's our purpose. So inside of here, I am going to decide what it needs to be to display a point, and one thing that I know needs to happen is the stroke weight needs to increase. So the stroke weight needs to be this dot size, and then I also need to actually draw that point, so I'm going to draw a point at this dot x, comma this dot y. Now again, we've talked about this with methods, but notice that I am using the this dot notation in order to get the numbers from this instance of my object. This is probably the one place where we're going to mess up the most because I still do it every time I make a new method for an object. We have to use the this or else it's going to tell us it doesn't know what size in x and y we are talking about. So once I have those, I can hit play. I still don't get a point, and the reason why I still don't have a point is because I have not actually said to display this particular walker. So I'm going to go down into the draw function underneath background. I'm going to say walker1.display. Boop, boop. And then I'm going to hit play, and then we should see that I have this nice round point sitting on my screen. It doesn't move, but it is showing up. It has all the information from this constructor, and it is doing exactly what we said to do in the display. It's sitting there, and it's just ready for the next thing. So to make it move, I think that's like a separate action. Displaying is one action, movement is a second action. And what we're going to see as we kind of go on with this is any different action we're doing, we want to try and break them down into like little pieces. So now it's displayed. Let's make it move. So underneath the display method, so outside of this curly brace for display, I'm going to make it move. And to make it move, I am going to say that this dot x needs to have a random value between -2 and 2 added to it, and this dot y needs to have a random value between -2 and 2 added to it. And remember that this type of addition, that's what's going to create motion, because I'm going to be constantly updating the position value of this point. Again, if I hit play right now, nothing is going to happen. It's not going to move. And the reason it's not going to move is I have not told it to move in the draw function. So underneath walker1.display, I am going to put walker1.move. And for both of these, notice I am not console.logging. I am not like saving the value to a variable, and that's because neither of these are returning a value. Right now they are just making an action happen on the screen, and I can know that they're working pretty directly because I see things happening on the screen. So if I hit play now, I get this little guy that starts wiggling all around my page, like very randomly, like a really dizzy toddler who just did the thing where they spun in circles, now they're going to throw up. So this on its own is kind of cool. If I was wondering if this was working, I could also add some console.logs into both of these, which I'm not going to. But I'm going to try and make this an even more interesting project, and I'm just going to recall that the draw function runs forever. That's why this movement is happening over and over and over repeatedly. It's why this display is showing up, and it's also why I'm only seeing my walker in that one place, because the background is redrawing after every time this happens. If I were to take the background and either delete it or drop it in the setup function and then hit play, I am still going to get a moving walker, But now it is also going to draw on my screen for me, because now that the background is not repeatedly redrawing, it is not covering the path of this little walker man. And so now I can see the exact path that it is taking as it moves around the screen. So what I would love to have you guys do, you have some challenges in your work. You also are it's open for you to try and make this more interesting. Some things that you could do. You're welcome to try and have this X and this Y start at different locations, either that you program in with the constructor or that you set randomly. Same thing with the size. You are welcome to have the size stay 15. You're welcome to have it change randomly. You're welcome to make that something that you pass in through the constructor. But I would also love for you to add a color to control this little point. Please remember that points do not have a fill. They only have a stroke color. So that you can either set the color of this walker, or again, you can like try and make some random numbers happen. And then you guys are going to try and make 2 new instances of this walker, so that you will have 3 little colors of Wiggly Guy moving around your screen, making some randomly generated art. If you would like some like big extra credit and thinking ahead of the world in what it looks like today, you are welcome to look up NFPs, which are non-fungible products. It is like all the rage right now in the world of art and making things that are strangely generative and only live in an online space. The last one sold for like a crazy amount of money. So please look into that and maybe think about making some bank and then, paying off my student loans and buying me a car. Have fun with this, guys. Make your new walkers. The instructions are in your work. Good luck.